What's crackin' everybody? Money smart guy Matt Sapaula here, hailing to you from Dallas, Texas, and welcome to another episode 42 of the Seven Figure Squad podcast. And excited today to have these topics of inflation, of money actually bringing you happiness, of finance and fitness, of making sure that you do everything you can possibly to make sure you're at least economically prepared for what's about to take place. And joining me in the studio today is my trainer, my co-host of the show, Mr. Milton Alvarez.
Happy Wednesday, baby.
Likewise, man. Likewise. So it's been a couple weeks. We've been jammed up. I've been jammed up in meetings on Wednesdays, and we have not been able to do a normal Wednesday afternoon podcast live like we normally have done. But since then, this whole thing in Israel and in Gaza has erupted. And we need to address it because this is something that deals with us from a spiritual standpoint, from a fatherhood standpoint, from an uncle standpoint, from a family standpoint, from a faith standpoint, and also from an economical standpoint, which we'll get here in a second. What does this mean to us economically here in the United States of America if all these conflicts are going on in Russia and Ukraine and now Israel in Palestine and through Hamas? What is going on? So I went on News Nation Now to discuss the military readiness of our country today, and I was shocked to have to report an opinion about what's going on with the military combat readiness of the United States Armed Forces. Let's take a look at this clip.
A new study finds nearly 70% of active service members are overweight. Matt, it's good to see you. I can't quite figure this out. What is it?
Obesity is the easiest form to see lack of discipline, and that comes from the top. These guys are not taking advantage of the standards that were set before them from veterans that served. There's such narrative on social media, in conversation with other people, about how poor it is in America and how rough it is in America. People don't want to serve in the military. And due to lack of patriotism is because people realize how much are not taking care of veterans post-military service. And so that's not encouraging a lot of people to say, a great career path would be to serve our country. I think we got to get back to the fundamentals of we are serving our country, a country that we love, that we call home. Doesn't matter if you're white, you're black, you're brown. This is the red, white, and blue right here. And that patriotism is lost right now in America. I know there's a lot of jobs that there's not a lot of forward-fighting jobs in MOSs. It's more, a lot of technology-based, but it doesn't mean that America should not be taken care of by the number one job of our military, which is to fight and win wars.
If you be the cash, I'll be the rubber band. Okay. If you be the cash,
I'll be the rubber band. You'll be the match. I will be a fuse. Boom.
Yeah, we're ready to fight a war for sure. Let's just talk about the topic of discussion there, which is obesity.
100%.
You're a trainer. And then we're going to talk about our viewpoint here, what's going on with Israel, this Gaza Strip.
Yeah.
So what's your thoughts here on obesity? Especially, you as a citizen of America, you depend on the military. They got one job, and that's to fight and win wars. And now they're coming in obese. As the guys don't want to serve the military. The recruiting outside the Marine Corps has dropped. They have not hit the recruiting quotas for the outside the Marine Corps. And yet those that are in are obese.
As you said in your video, Matt, it starts from the very, very top, and the standard is extremely low. Because I've seen recruiters even nowadays walking around malls here in Dallas, just walking around in their uniforms, and they're overweight.
Really?
And I remember being at Proviso West High School, and we consistently have Navy, Marine, Army recruiters with their pull-up bars hanging out by the lunchrooms, and all in shape, midsections ripped, flexing their muscles. And anyone that would come into our school would always be in shape. You would rarely see someone who was out of shape or had a gut. And the way they carried themselves was very different. The energy that they carried with them was completely different than with a lot of people that are just letting themselves go. And with that, the unfortunate thing about this is, guys, when you're allowing yourself to completely shed away from having a healthier lifestyle, it's not just about being fat or skinny or having muscle or big arms or big chest or a six-pack. It's about this person's lack of discipline. If you as a person are allowing yourself, your habits, your lifestyle to completely be out of whack and out of line with where you're headed, that shows me that you lack discipline with the one thing that you have control over, which is your physical health. And if you lack discipline in the one thing that you have control over, then what makes me think that you're not going to have lack of discipline in every other aspect of your life?
How you do one thing is how you do everything.
So I actually, if we can pull something up on your laptop, I sent you that link.
Sure. And can we take a look at this?
Yeah,
Jordan?
Yeah. Scroll down a little more. Right there.
Okay.
So here, guys, this is something that my clients get whenever they start working with me. It's multiple systems and strategies and formulas that we create, so that way they are able to attain the goal that they're trying to attain. So here are 6 exercises to be able to increase self-discipline. So if you're watching this online live, or you're going to watch it in the future, screenshot this. This is definitely very, very helpful for you guys. Is acknowledging that you have a weakness. But in order for you to acknowledge that you have a weakness, you need to be very, very straightforward with yourself and be raw. Have that conversation with yourself. Unfortunately, a lot of people do not want to admit to themselves that they have flaws or they have shortcomings. So have a really strong conversation with yourself and acknowledge that you have a weakness. From that point, guys, it's time to be able to create a plan. That's step number 2. Creating a plan on how you're going to take actionable steps towards that specific goal. And in this case, it's your physical health. From there, you remove temptations. Then you go into practice tolerating discomfort. And then from there, you go into visualizing the reward that you're going to get, which is higher energy. You feel better, you look better, you think better. You if you're in a relationship, your marriage gets better, especially because your performance as a man, you have more energy to play with your kids. You feel a lot more on top of the world in your business and your leadership, and also you're able to recover from mistakes a lot easier. And in that position, guys, being able to create a lifestyle that's mainly led by discipline, that's going to be something that you will be able to implement to every aspect of your life. So definitely, folks, if you're a person, man or woman, leading a team, leading a group of people into a specific realm that you're trying to head to, a specific goal, you yourself you're the main factor amongst everyone in your team that's failing. You set the standard, you lead by example, but in order for you to have that example, you need to be able to have a couple steps of self-discipline.
Jordan, can we take a look at my screen? To Milton's point, it's written in my book, Faith Made Millionaire, in chapter 5. But do you know, let's take a look at my screen here. Do you not know that your bodies are temples of the Holy Spirit, who is in you, whom you have received from God? You are not your own. So you're here to serve your family, your community, and when need be, your country. And if you're out of shape, if you're physically out of shape, something in your life is lacking discipline. And it annoys me because when everybody's talking about how horrible it is here in America, forget about America, man. How's your life?
Yeah.
How are you taking care of yourself? How are you going about feeling about yourself? And, before I had met you in 2019, I wasn't feeling so good about myself. I was okay economically. Yeah. I was okay financially. I was okay having to say I got money in the bank. I got my kids here and safety, convenience here. But man, I was not happy as a dad. I couldn't run after my kid. I'm leaving the house right now. I'm running after my son, and I'm laughing because I'm running after him. And he's laughing his butt off, and I'm laughing because he's laughing, and I'm losing my breath because he's losing his breath because he's laughing so hard. But that's the joy, man. That's the juice of life, and how much we would be robbing ourselves if we are out of shape. And let alone our military, armed forces, that the standards of the military has dropped so much that guys and gals in the military in uniform aren't even calling it out. They're not even saying. They're waiting for guys like me, veterans, to call it out. I mean, in that clip, with the guys behind me was one Army, one Navy, and they're looking at it disgusted. They're already out. They're still in shape. Yeah. So it's you listen to people in the military to wear a uniform. Have pride in that uniform. And if you have pride in that uniform, have pride in our country. If you don't have pride in the country, have pride in yourself. Have pride that you stand for something. You're serving our country, and you want to serve the country in the best way you can serve, at least from the standpoint of the easiest way to do it is physically, to be able to do your job, to fight and win wars. And let's talk about this. We've been asked this. You've asked me this. What's my feeling so far on what's going on in overseas? Listen, I'm never on the side of terrorists. Zero is on the side of terrorists. Let me define terrorism real quick. What is a terrorist? Those who use intentional violence and fear to achieve political or ideological aims. I'm zero fan of terrorists. I'm zero fan of terrorists when people try to negotiate with me in business. I'm definitely a zero fan of terrorism when it comes to inciting violence to achieve a political or ideological aims. And I swore an oath to defend this country, both foreign and domestic. And when I see things like this going on overseas, I'm seeing similarities of things like this from an ideological standpoint happening here in America. I'm not on the side of it. So what was your first impression when you first saw the paragliders coming in? They're attacking by They're attacking by the ocean, and they're storming the barricades. And as I'm reading about this stuff, and I've got my initial rules when I hear like stuff in the media, because here's what I know about media: being in two world combats, two world theaters in combat. First thing that goes out the door is the truth. Never trust the media in the first 24, 48, 72 hours ever. I'm sitting here in Somalia. CNN is on a helicopter with us, paying us $50,000 an hour to be on a helicopter with us. 2:00 in the morning, launch us in assault into Mogadishu, Somalia, Africa. What we saw the next day on the news was complete lie. I'm sitting here thinking, that's not what happened. That's not what happened. That's not what happened. Same thing too in the Persian Gulf. It was a lie. So the first thing I've learned to do when looking at the media, both mainstream media and social media, is not look at the initial shock factor of what's going on. But we saw that though.
Yeah.
We saw what's going on. Horrible. What was your first initial thoughts?
Well, as you said, when you first see something, like when I woke up, what was it, Saturday morning when the first initial attack, Saturday morning when I woke up, the first things you see is Hamas has attacked Israel.
Yeah.
Paraglide, and you see the images.
You got a trip to Israel you got planned.
Had. It was supposed to be in 2 weeks, and it's definitely not happening anymore. But here's the thing for me, man. It's extremely hard to view one point and extremely just side with one specific point of view, because now it might be the algorithm. I don't know what it may be, but I have a lot more more Muslim friends, people who actually live in Lebanon, people who live in Israel. And I have people from both parties on my timelines, whether it's on Facebook or it's on Instagram, and it's constant posting. And one of the things that I did notice, the first 3 days of this entire incident happening is there are a lot of people who were pro-Israel. And as time went on, and as more media coverage started happening on social media and all these news outlets, but not so much mainstream, I'm talking about social media. And a lot of reporters started going to the front lines. A lot of people started reporting from both aspects of things. A lot of those pro-Israel people started pulling away out of the fear of being canceled, out of the fear of being judged, out of the fear of just being pointed at as XYZ, right? And then there's a lot of people who are in the gray area saying, well, I'm not siding with Israel, and I'm not siding with Palestine. I stand against Hamas. I stand against the killing of children. I stand against hiding behind women and children and using them as your shield. I stand against the attacks that are consistently happening. And then we look numbers wise, the death toll there's like multiple daily trackers that are online that are US based and also foreign based, that are tracking the number of deaths that are happening between Palestine and Israel, and the ones in Palestine are heavier than the ones in Israel. There's 6,600 plus Palestinians who have been killed versus 1,400 plus people who have been killed since October 7th in Israel. So when you look at the numbers, and it's hard because you look at the images, people who have family in Gaza, people who have, my friends, people who have uncles and aunts who have died in these bombings, and they're calling me like, Milton, like, we know where you stand with your belief systems. We know where you stand with what you stand. But man, look at these images. And then they send me pictures, or they send me videos of people reporting it. Yeah. It's extremely hard not to, to look away and say, yeah, but I still stand with XYZ. When you see beheaded kids from Gaza being carried in their father's arms, you see kids, women bleeding out from these attacks, right? But then you also look in the media, and it's been over a week, and we ask ourselves, on this side of the world, how many people that, Israel has attacked, how many of those people that they've killed, or how many captives have they actually have that are actually from Hamas, versus the killings of, and again, I'm not saying that Israel is attacking these innocent women and children on purpose, but how many Hamas people have actually been captured? How many Hamas people have actually been killed versus the amount of innocent bystanders that have been killed just by existing and living?
Yep. I want to show this one video.
Yeah.
They're not going to have any sound on it.
Sure.
But I just wanted to share, this is the side I'm on.
Yeah.
100% is the side I'm on. So, Jordan, if we can take a look at this, this is my screen here in vMix. Let's take a look at this screen right here. Look at this. Okay? Now, I don't know what side the guy in the military helmet is on, but I'm on the side of the babies in his lap.
Yeah.
You can't fake that. You can't dress it up. The kids are feeling this way. I can only imagine my father, myself. I'm going to stop this because this is pissing me off. But here's what I will say. I am on the side of human life. I'm on the side of providing for the life, the family that God has given me, and the situation that God has entrusted me with. I'm for that side. I'm on the side of freedom and protecting freedom. I'm on the side of defend life and freedom. I'm on the side of praying, even for my enemies. Whoo! Matthew 5:43-45, Jesus' words. Have you not heard what it was said? You shall love your neighbor and hate your enemy? But I say to you, love your enemies and pray for those who persecute you, so that you may be sons of your Father who is in heaven. How hard is it to pray for your enemies right now, man? And it's got me as a check in my spirit. Can I really pray for my enemy? Can I really pray for the people that have gone against me? I've seen so many different examples of people praying for their enemies. I'm thinking to myself, can I really put myself in that embodiment? And I've had to flex that muscle because, living here in America, you're away from a lot of enemies because we have a natural defensive country here on both sides, But to really pray for your enemies, can you really get on the side of praying for your enemies or whoever the enemy you feel is? I'm on the side of love, but yet I will not hesitate to use violence if what I love is threatened or hindered.
Can I add one more thing to this? So one thing I want to make clear, at least from my end, for the people watching this and for people who are asking, well, what do we do? Where do we stand? In my belief system, and Matt, you can contradict this if you like to, or if you want to align with this. I no longer believe that this is a religious thing. I no longer believe that this is a cultural thing.
That's right.
I would definitely believe this is more of an evil versus good thing, and we understand and we know that war is profitable in many areas, and many people are profiting off of what's going on right now. And it's unfortunate that on both ends, a lot of children and a lot of women are being dragged through the dirt because of these profiteers. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people don't stand up and acknowledge that, again, it's no longer religion, it's no longer culture. It's good versus evil. And there's a lot more evil happening. There's a lot more evil winning on both ends. And it's unfortunate that a lot of people aren't seeing the mass destruction that's happening within some of these communities in Gaza. Now, again, I'm not sitting here and siding with either or. I'm just speaking based off of what you see, based off of the stats, based off of the numbers and the data that's being poured into these platforms on a daily basis. And many people will consider that mass genocide. Many people believe now on a political standpoint and on a military standpoint that there's a strategy where Israel's coming in, because if you see where most of these attacks started happening, they started in the north part of Gaza. So many people have this, theoretically speaking, that the attack started happening north. Now Israel a couple of days ago started pushing and pressuring people from Gaza to start evacuating that part of Gaza and move south. So a lot of people believe it's more political and more territorial, where they're trying to push everyone south. Once they push everyone from Gaza south, Israel's going to make a deal with Egypt, where Egypt will open their borders for those refugees, where they finally can push everybody out of Gaza. So now Israel can completely take over that land. And now the only thing that Israel has to worry about now is the West Bank, where most of these Palestinians also reside in. So it's a lot going on. It's a lot of information. And if you generally do not understand the full depth of what's actually going on during these times, I'm speaking for myself right now, don't feel like you need to side with either or. It's okay to understand that this is deeper than just political, religion, and culture. This is death happening on a daily basis. And, fortunately, but unfortunately, we're on this side of the world where we're not experiencing that physically. We're on this side of the world where we don't have to wake up every day fearing for our lives. We have the resources that we need. Whether you're high income or low income, we have resources that they don't have. And like Matt said, the best thing that we can really focus on is praying for these people, regardless of which side you're on. Keeping a cool head and understanding both sides, and understanding that human life is a lot more important than war. Human life is a lot more important than a political plan, and human life is a lot more important than a financial plan that people may have that could be one of the main reasons why this is actually happening.
Yep. And we're going to get to economic impact. So we're talking about the spiritual, maybe the geopolitical impact of this too as well. We're going to talk about the economical impact of this in a second. But when you're looking at what side you want to choosing a higher power that can solve all this, that for me, I believe that. I don't know if you believe that, but I believe that. But I believe that at the same time too, in Matthew 11, let's take a look at this scripture. Matthew 11, and from the time John the Baptist began preaching until now, the kingdom of heaven has been forcefully advancing and violent people are attacking it. So again, this is not something that's new. What we're looking at and what's going on in the Middle East is something that's been going on for thousands of years. And we're only able to put our mind around it for what has happened to it in our lifetimes. But this has been going on for thousands of years. It's a spiritual war. It's not a economical war or a territorial war. This is a spiritual war, everybody. And so, again, I'm on the side of love, but yet I will not hesitate to use violence if what I love is threatened or hindered. With that being said, let's talk about the geopolitical impact of this. So, number one, what can we expect? How does this affect our pockets? How is going on in Israel? What's going on in Russia, Ukraine? How is this affecting us? Well, number one, prices. Everything's going to go up. Global instability affects oil prices. So they're redirecting oil already. And so the Ukraine crisis directed this. You can see it now happening right now that oil prices are being redirected. So guess what? Your gas prices are going to go up because they're redirecting it to the war effort. And so when the area of U.S. gas prices, we've covered it already. Gas prices in California, $7. Expected to be $8. Expected to be $9. Don't expect it to be any cheaper. So cost of gas and oil is going to be a whole lot higher. If you look at the financial, there's higher costs of energy, right? Energy costs are going up all across the world too as well. The cost of transportation, heating, and goods will increase, and you will have to dig deeper into our pockets to pay for more of what we spend on a regular basis. Monday. Let me show you this picture. Monday, I'm in a retirement community. People have done well for themselves. Okay, people have done well for themselves are staying in the retirement assisted living community. If you can take a look at this picture. So we're at this workshop with Gene Chapman. Everybody's concerned about their retirement. These folks are concerned about how this will affect the stock market, affects their savings, because they're not going to work anymore. They're hoping that the only thing that they have coming in is their savings, their retirement, their pensions are either A, enough to cover the living expenses, or B, earning a higher rate of return enough to meet the higher costs of energy and gas and overall cost of living. Because they just discovered next year they're going to have a $500 increase in staying at this retirement community. Because the retirement community also is shouldering a burden of costs and expenses and energy to keep the place and keep the lights on. So guess where they're passing on those costs to? The residents. So if you're thinking you're worrying about this in your 20s and 30s, hey, people in their 80s and 90s are worried about this stuff. And so having a defensive strategy with your finances and in terms of making sure you don't lose whatever you save, and having an offensive strategy and make sure you control your income is something that you're smartly tuned into in terms of how to make second, third, fourth, fifth streams of income. The other area that this might affect us is if these conflicts continue to escalate. Stock market, I just mentioned earlier, stock market will have volatility, up and down, up and down. Your retirement accounts and brokerage accounts with direct investments in the stock market will fluctuate. So this is where you have to talk to somebody on how to protect the downside of your retirement accounts, whatever you saved up for your future kids' college education. And as it isn't bad already, with inflation, with interest rates up there. I think they just reported Bloomberg just reported that to buy a house here in America, you need $141,000 of income just to buy the typical house. $141,000 of household income for you to buy the typical house. In other words, it's cheaper to rent than to own.
So a house that you would basically live in maybe about 10, 15, 20 years ago, not one of those new houses that are like, you see those $100 homes that look like train box carts?
Yeah, right.
I think we put that on the
covered that, yeah.
But that's a small ass home, and that's for what? For a single person. I actually, and what you say, play defense when it comes into your finances. I actually yesterday, my CPA called me. Mm-hmm. And he's like, "Hey Milton, is that time of year again?" I'm like, "Which part?" He's like, "Where I yell at you for all the bullshit that you're doing this year." I'm like, "Okay, so hit me." So I mean, I can pull it on the screen. I don't mind showing it. I mean, you really can't see it, but my expenses for August were for the month were $20,000 expenses. And out of those $20,000, $6,000 for them for the month of August was eating out. $6,000.
So you spent $6,000 in a month.
In one month. In 1 month
okay.
on food. That's what, $72,000 a year. If
$72,000 a year.
If it's $6,000 every single month for 12 months, that's $72,000 in a year.
Yeah, and by the way, you have no kids, no wife, but you're running your business. What do you think my bill is?
Yeah, yeah. So then I did the math. I'm like, okay, this is stupid. This is ridiculous. I could be putting that money. I mean, it's not $6,000 every month. It's for various reasons when I go to meetings or I meet people. So it's completely different. It fluctuates. Yeah. But if that's the average, which is not, but let's say that was the average, I can employ what, 2 people at 2-3 people. I could be doing so much with my money.
Yeah,
so much more money with my money. So then, yes, I screw it. You know what? I'm looking to a meal prep company. Something I've been dreading to do. I look into a meal prep company where I can get 3 meals a day for 6 days out of the week, and then 1 day out of the week I can do whatever I want. 3 meals a day for 6 days out of the week, and get enough meals that will last me for an entire month for $500. $500 times 12, that's $6,000 a year. So what I would waste in a year using meal prepping, I'm wasting it now in a month just doing whatever the hell I want. So if I do that, if I do meal prepping for $6,000 a year, I'm saving $66,000 a year if 6,000 is an average.
Did you go out eat just for the convenience of just eating instead of bringing, like, basically you're doing another version of packing lunch by doing meal prep?
Right, exactly. So it's cheaper and it's convenient, and I don't have to waste time cooking.
How much is each meal prep?
Like between $8 to $10. Cheap.
By the way, for all those of you watching this right now, what do you guys spend for lunch? I'm just curious. For those of you watching this live, for those of you watching the replay, what do you guys spend by yourself for lunch? Or are you eating by yourself for lunch? You're just having a meal by yourself. You go to, I don't know, you go to Jersey Mike's, you go to Quiznos, you go to wherever. Where do you like typically? Because I'm always specific with where I based on which one.
Chipotle and Cava. Okay. So quick
Chipotle
tip for a lot of these millennials and these the younger cats who love DoorDash and Uber Eats, delete those apps, guys. That's the biggest thing for me. Delete those apps. Yesterday I deleted any Uber Eats apps, any DoorDash apps, any of those apps, and also since we were going to the new facility, I don't want to mention it just yet, but we're going to a new facility and working out. I had to cancel about 4 or 5 gym memberships, and in 4 or 5 gym memberships, I'm dropping around $575 a month in just pure gym memberships that I don't even utilize.
Back to the bottom line for you.
Boom.
Yeah.
Right, and now that adds up. That also adds up to about anywhere between $6,000 to $7,000 a year that could just be utilized for something else. So
a large part of the defensive strategies Milton's been talking about is mitigating and minimizing and or eliminating expenses. What can you minimize, mitigate, and eliminate going forward in terms of expense? So therefore, you put more money to the bottom line, because it's one thing to have money coming in, but it's another thing to actually keep what's coming in, keep more of what's coming in. So that's part of the assets, liabilities, income versus expenses conundrum that we're always going to find ourselves in, whether you're 20s and 30s or whether you're 80s and 90s. And speaking of boomers who went through World War I, World War II, speaking of millennials who's gone through, Afghanistan and OIF, OEF, Afghanistan, Iraq, and now what's going on here in Israel in Hamas and in the Gaza Strip. There's also a difference too in inflation and making ends meet. So this guy, he put together a comparison of what it was like when you were in your 30s, during the baby boomer generation when they were 30s versus what the millennials are going through in their 30s, because millennials now are getting older. Yeah. Millennials used to pick on me because I was the old guy. Right? Hey, Matt, how old are you? I'm 28, 38. Oh, you're old, dude. All the millennials are dogging me out. Now, the millennials, you're old.
We're getting beat up. We're beat up.
So let's take a look at this. Take a look at this clip.
1980, 1990, and 2000, because this is when the boomers were in their 30s, depending on when they were born, compared to us millennials today. Housing prices, $48K, $76K, $105,000. Interest rates, 13.7, 10%, 8%. Principal and interest on those with a 20% down payment, $446, $534, $616. Average rent, $243, $447, and $602. Median household income, $21,000, $30,000, $42,000. Why am I sharing all this? Because collectively, no matter when you were born, boomers, whether you were born in the 40s, 50s, or 60s, you were spending on average about 18% of your income on rent and or housing. Just 18%. And I will say in the 1980s, the older boomers in 1980, with those high interest rates, you were spending about 25% of your income, so you felt a little pressure. But if you didn't want to buy a home, you could rent for just 14% of your income. Now let's fast forward to today. The millennials in their 30s. 2023, the average home is $436. The average rent is $2,000. Interest rates are 7.5%. And the average income for a median household is $81,000. So to own a house, which you couldn't even qualify for this house, by the way, but it'd be 36% of a family's income. And if they were forced to rent, it's 29%.
So that's the conundrum that a lot of millennials are feeling. So the tightness. So in addition to eating out, minimizing, mitigating, eliminating expenses, now you got to deal with housing, right? Now you got to deal with the family aspect of not only taking care of yourself, but people in your family. So what's your thoughts on what you just experienced there?
Well, a lot of people will give pushback on saying, well, look, Milton, I'm not trying to get a home, well, for example, here in the Colony or in Chicago, back in Naperville, in Oak Brook or Lombard. I'm just trying to live, have a roof over my head, and I can care less where I live. Especially if you're a single man or a single person, you the last thing you think about is security. But now you're in your situation where you have kids, and now you start having those stuff. Like for me, example, right now, if I completely lost everything, absolutely everything, as long as I have a roof over my head or I live in someone's basement, I can care less because I know I can rebuild. But now if I have children, it's a completely different story. So even though people are, the average income is anywhere between $70,000 to $80,000 a year, that's average. We're not talking about people who are making anywhere between, $35,000 to $45,000 a year. Is it socially acceptable, in a man's eyes or a woman's eyes, or just, people who are the working class, for someone to say, hey, look, I'm making XYZ amount of money, and I can really care less on where I live as long as I have a roof over my head. Even if it's not a good neighborhood, I still have a roof over my head. Like for those people who give pushback on that.
Well, it depends on where you feel safe. Because here's a problem. Do you want people that you live around, do you want them also to be well off?
Of course.
Of course, because if the people around you are not well off, guess who they're going to try to take the money from?
Yeah.
They're going to try to take the money from you.
Correct.
So if I'm living in a good neighborhood, I want to make sure the people in that neighborhood also living good. Let me take a look at this, the screen VMix, Jordan. This is the fastest change in the federal funds rate in the history of America. The interest rates in America continue to go higher and higher and high basis points increase. Change in effective federal funds rate, which affects credit card interest rates, bank CDs, savings rates, mortgage rates. This is the fastest it's ever been in the history of America. So this is a rapid increase that is shocking a lot of people. And, there's a lot of realtors out there saying, you know what, still buy. And by the way, this is the worst news to hear, because what's that article here? Rent, cheaper, we cover this, cheaper to rent than buy, right? All these articles right now. So let's take a look at the, here. Renting now, rental market softening continues even now. Cheaper to rent than buy in nearly every major market. By the way, this is a realtor's, loan officer's worst headline. I had to be in this situation. But what are they going to try to tell you, though? What's a realtor or what's a loan officer trying to say? Go buy. Because one thing you can't change down the road is the price that you buy it. But you can change the interest rate because you can always refinance it.
Refinance the house, yes, correct.
But here's a problem, though. When are we expecting the interest rate to go back down? Do we control that? Okay, so if we're expecting to buy this house at a higher interest rate, well, guess what we have to come up more with? More down payment and a larger than normal and ordinary monthly mortgage payment, probably exceeding what we would pay on rent. So back to the guy's example, though. He's claiming that houses are here and we have to spend more money of our salary and housing too as well. But also I would argue that today people spend more money on a lot of bullshit too. Back then, there was no Starbucks.
Yeah.
Back then, there's not a lot of conveniences. Back then, everybody was eating at the house.
Correct.
Back then, everybody was saving more money. Everybody was working together. Back then, people weren't worried about Gucci. Back then, people weren't worried about Jordans.
Yeah.
Back then, people weren't worried about all these different things to show that they're wealthy. They just became wealthy. But today, it's about the floss. It's about the status. It's about, hey, do I have this? Do I have that? And compared to, because, I'm going on this vacation, going on this trip. So that's the area too that a lot of people are facing, and people think that. Well, I'll be my own devil's advocate. People say, you know what? If I just make more money, I'll be much more happier. Okay, so let's take a look at this next clip, Jordan, about this person actually making multi-millions of dollars a year.
Money creates problems, even in families. Money brings stress. The more you have, the more stress. And where is the stop? You could live a good life with normal money, but what is normal money now? I've been on both sides. I've been without money, grew up with a family, but I had a good life. I had it good at that moment. So
Were you happier
where
then?
is the stop?
Were you happier then?
But what is happiness?
Well, you tell me.
It's moments. I'm happy now. In 10 minutes, I could be unhappy. So it's moments. Money makes it easier, makes your life easier, but I don't think it gives you happiness. Because for me, happiness is moments. You're happy with one situation now. My dream was come to Barcelona. After 1 year was my nightmare.
Yeah.
So it's moments. But I agree with you. I think when it comes to having a lot of money, it's an ego thing because
All right,
your
so
life
let's-
would not change. Let's say the Saudi situation.
Let's take a look at this. Okay. So I totally get what he's going through. I've been both money, without money, not money. I would say this, bottom line. Money makes me a lot of happiness. It brings me a lot of happiness. Okay. However, money doesn't define me.
Correct.
But it brings me a whole lot of happiness. If I'm going to go through tough problems, if I'm going to go through issues in my life, if I'm going to go through heartbreaks, if I'm going to go through setbacks, I'd rather have money behind me than not.
100%. So with that, 100%, I agree. Money has helped me provide for my loved ones. Money has helped me provide my loved ones with experiences. Money has opened doors for me that before, when I was just working 9 to 5, it wouldn't have helped me. But one of the things that I really, really resonate with what he said is money does, with more money equals more stress. So you have a picture of me there. If we can pull it up, Jordan. This was me in 2017, 2018. This is me working in a...
Come on.
You're good.
Yeah.
This was me working a 9 to 5 job. I was working at a nonprofit organization. I was making like $17.25 an hour. I was working out of Ravenswood, Illinois. I was waking up at 5 a.m. every day, coming home around 6, 7 p.m., getting my 8 hours of sleep, doing well, barely making ends meet, but have a smile on my face. Bags under my eyes are irrelevant. They're not there. My hairline's okay.
Yeah.
My barber messed it up, but I look good. My skin looks clear.
Yeah.
Fast forward to this year, more money, more responsibility, more things to take care of, and I look like shit.
You think so? Bro, it's just, okay. By the way, do y'all think, for those who are watching, you think Milton looks like shit? That's just, you look
now-
more rugged, bro. You
and now
look
we
like,
zoom
you
in
look like
now.
me. You look like a boy. You look like a man.
If we zoom in now, these bags here.
Oh, okay.
Sure, it's a lack of sleep, and I will say I know a couple of my
Deal
clients.
with
do
life,
this.
baby.
Exactly, it's life now. There's more money, more issues, more things that you have to worry about. But I go back to what we spoke about 2 weeks ago or last week. There's a lot of people who don't want to go through the responsibility of being responsible for their outcome. A lot of people don't want to encounter and have to deal with the responsibility of owning up to their mistakes or being a man and taking hold of their life, including their finances. So a lot of people rather resort back to oppression, do the bare minimum, get by, and have a quote unquote peaceful life, but yet with a lot of restriction where you can't do what you want with your family. You can't call off on days you want to call off. You can't have that freedom to provide for the loved ones versus having the responsibility, feeling like crap sometimes, feeling exhausted, running on fumes sometimes.
Sure.
But you have the means to be able to help your family out.
Jordan, let's take a look at this, my screen real quick. There's this article on NBC that a small study suggests money can buy happiness for households earning up to 123. So is there an amount?
Yeah.
That if the person, if I'm making 6 figures, I mean, we do our workshops twice a week. How many of you love to make 6 figures? How many are not making 6 figures? A lot of hands don't go up. How many of you guys would like to make 6 figures in the next 12 to 18 months? A lot of hands go up. So if I can show you a formula of how you can make 6 figures, I wouldn't say guaranteed because I don't know what you're going to do. I know we're going to do to help you get there, but I don't know if you're going to actually come here, show up and do the work. But if you are able to do the work and you're able to rock together with us for the next 12 to 18 months, I can show you systematically and predictably how you can make 6 figures in the next 12 to 18 months. But if they are able to make this, because that makes them happy. The things that normally go on make them happy. I can't say this though, too, Milton. On the flip side, just being a devil's advocate to myself, there is a portion of my life today as a multimillionaire that money has brought me more stress. There's part of my life that, because I have money today in the millions, that has caused me to make very difficult decisions. That's caused me to be annoyed. Okay, let's just talk about the easy one, the annoying. That Rolls Royce, love that Rolls Royce. That thing's like a freaking porcelain teacup driving up and down the road. Man, if I hit I don't know, something in the road,
Yeah, pothole or something.
something, that something's going wrong with that car. And I just got done with a brake job, $10,000 brake job. Now, the amount didn't piss me off. The fact that I basically brought a brand new car with a damn brake job and a Rolls Royce, that kind of annoyed me, kind of pissed me off, right? Family. Now that you're making millions and it's all over social media, people, oh, my cousin's multimillionaire. He can. How come it doesn't give it to us? How come it doesn't share it with us? Oh, he must be tied. Da 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 da. Right? Because now I've got a protocol with family and how to loan money. They think I'm just going to give it to them. They think, and by the way, family's going to hear this. I'm probably going to avoid a lot of family parties because they expect me to buy presents for everybody. Yeah. By the way, family, sometimes your own family is the fastest reason why people go broke because of the expectation of holidays. And so I think going forward into the holidays, a tip should be, hey fam, times are tough. We're paying more money for gas. We're paying more money for housing. We're paying more for all this stuff. Times are tough. Let's be smart, be money smart with our finances, and let's think about just one. Everybody get together. We buy one gift for one person in our family. We put it in here. What do you call that?
A white elephant.
White elephant gift.
Yeah, where you choose a name out of the hat or whatever.
Yeah.
Yeah, you pick that person.
Yeah. Because at the end of the day, why did Christmas end up being a validation of how much you love somebody by the gift you give them? It's because they took up the we three kings of Orient are and they give frankincense, incense, and myrrh. Because they've created a consumerism aspect around Christmas. It was about that. It's about Jesus. Christmas, for me, that's the holiday. For many people that's listening to this, that's the holiday. It's not about the holiday of giving gifts. Thoughts?
1%. Let me ask you. In the beginning, when you first started coming around and financially, you're like, okay,
yeah,
I'm not losing sleep on how I'm going to pay rent,
Zero.
pay my mortgage the next day. I'm not losing sleep on what the next 10 years of my life have to, where they're headed when it comes down to my finances. When you got to that point, and you feel like that moment of, oh, I made it. You crossed over that line and said, wow, I made it. Or when you first got your first milestone in your company and you first started making your first mill, the conviction of helping your family at that point versus now, has that changed, or have you always had this mindset of, hey man, like I need to focus on my own? Where were you then when I was struggling? Like what was your conviction?
I'll break down the 4 different phases of income that we've experienced and continue to evolve into experience. Number 1, you got to get out of survival phase. The basic expenses, or you're settling to live in this neighborhood, or you don't have reliable transportation, or I'm borrowing money just to put food on the table to keep the lights on. You got to get out of that survival phase. Whether that's consolidating your resources, shacking up with certain people, your family members. We've said in the show, it should be a great idea for families to stay together, stick together, consolidate resources. The second area of that is status. Okay, I got the car. I can go in and apply for credit. You go into the department store. Would you like 10% off? Yes, I like 10% off. I apply for credit. I get credit. That's status. Or simple status is going to a restaurant to protect your time. I'm just going to go valet. Or status is I can afford DoorDash. But if you can't afford DoorDash, if you got to spend 2-3 hours of your hourly wage to get one DoorDash order, you shouldn't be DoorDashing. That's not status, okay? That's lazy. And you should find ways to make sure whatever you order on DoorDash, the conveniences of life, even Uber. One time, a buddy of mine, his kids, I'm taking Uber. I said, can you afford Uber? How much do you make? I make $15 an hour. Can you afford Uber? Why don't you take the time, since you got more of it and you're not using it to apply to make more money, to find a business or something more entrepreneurial, why don't you go take the bus? Why don't you find ways to carpool? Why don't you bike there?
It's ego, man.
Of course, it's ego, yeah. and also, yeah, I say laziness. Number 3 is freedom. Freedom. I can slide my credit card here. Sheena and I, we started experiencing freedom. We experienced food freedom at $250. We didn't experience family freedom until $500. Then we can start retiring certain family members. And by the way, if our family's retired, and they're going to have a job helping us out. They just can't get a check from us like we're the welfare state. But if you're part of us and you're getting a check from the family, you have to have some form of productivity going back to the family and the enterprise, which feeds you the ability to be retired. The last one is purpose. So first one is survival. Second one is status. Third one is freedom. Fourth one is purpose. Purpose meaning that everything you're doing right now is absolutely on purpose. People ask me, Matt, you're a multimillionaire. Why are you still at the office on Tuesday? Why at the office on Saturday? I say, you know why? Because you're not a millionaire yet. There is no such thing in our office as ivory towers. We only got trenches. And guess what? We're in the trenches with you to help you get to the next level, because that's the purpose of our business. Patrick said, saving America through enterprise. We say saving America through us transforming America and transferring the way they think. That's why people tune into our podcast and watch our content.
How can a man watching this and I want to say man because we're meant to lead as men. How can a man watching this podcast, this episode, this this video or this clip they're going to watch on Instagram Reels gain or redirect themselves to have some form of conviction to step into this new identity of, okay, I don't know what move I need to make, but I know I need to make a move because of my current family or the family that I one day long to have. So what conviction do men watching us right now need to have in order to step into that place?
My conviction is letting them know that you're not alone. There's other men just like you that was struggling both financially, spiritually, emotionally, mentally, and not exactly where they wanted to be. And every day they woke up was absolutely frustrated. People don't make a change unless they experience great pain. Until they experience great pain, then that's when they make a change. So if you're okay with feeling that pain, it's not bad enough yet. And I hope and pray it doesn't get any worse where you don't lose relationships, you don't lose your family, you don't lose your children, your wives, you don't lose your self-respect and dignity. I hope it doesn't get that bad. I hope that you care enough about yourself as a man that you want to preserve that, protect it, and grow that. But once you decide to say, you know what, enough is enough. I've had enough with my back up against the wall. Let's go play stinking offense. Let's go. Let me find the right association. Let me find the right running buddies to do it. That's what I hope they would get from watching these videos. It's not for us to be celebrated. It's for them to be inspired that other men are refusing to tolerate that it's okay to be lazy. It's okay to be broke. It's okay not to follow and have a faith. It's okay not to lead your family. It's okay to be passive about things. No, it's not okay. Because if you want to change your family, you got to change the way you think. Because the way you think is the way you're going to see. The way you're going to see is the way you're going to act. The way you're going to act is the results you're going to have in your life. So, which means that I got this one clip here I want to share that Dana White.
Okay,
let's
see.
Okay, so Dana White talks about the harsh realities of doing just that. Okay, so the flip side is one thing about me talking about it. Well, Dana White, who created the UFC, has his opinion about being your own boss and getting rid of the 9 to 5. Let's take a look at this.
I laugh every time I hear people saying, yeah, I don't like working for other people. So, I want to work for myself because I want to set my own hours and I want to, yeah, right. Let me tell you what, when you work for yourself, there are no days, there's no Christmas, there's no fucking Easter. There's none of that shit when you work for yourself. In the early days.
It's a grind.
Exactly. It's you're working through all those holidays. Every day something bad happens. Every day there's problems. Every day somebody's trying to fuck you and take what you've built, and you know what I mean? It's a war every day when you get up in the early day.
What's your thoughts on that?
I want to connect it to a video that I have that David Goggins speaking on ownership, and he's right. I believe you need to be able to have a sense of ownership. If you're going to take that step forward and to trying to do exactly what he's speaking about, you need to be able to have a sense of ownership and understand the direction that you're headed. It's going to involve a hell of a lot of responsibility. If you grew up in an environment where you were coddled, where you weren't really given the responsibility to grow into a man, actually let's go with be a man first and then ownership, because
be a man.
Because that's the thing. A lot of times these kids are growing up in environments where they're being too. I don't want to say pushed into more the sensitive route, but they're not. A lot of kids aren't being allowed to face life head on. A lot of kids are being heavily protected by a lot of feminized men and by the moms. So if you look at the video, be a man, please.
Moms turn babies into boys, but it's the dads who turn boys into men. And when the dads are absent or emotionally absent, and when they haven't been taught how to be a man, how to stand up and shake hands. You don't just say hi to someone. You stand up, shake hands, make eye contact. If a woman's going up the escalator, you stand behind her. If she's going down the escalator, you stand in front of her. If you're walking on a sidewalk with a woman, a man walks on the street side. You're opening doors for women. You're a savage and a servant. You're a lamb and a lion.
Yeah.
100%. 100%. And nowadays, a lot of these younger cats who are having kids in their early 20s, mid-20s, even early 30s, they don't understand the principles of what it is to be a man and how it is to be able to raise a boy into a man and what principles to instill.
And if you're a 20-year-old boy, young man, having a kid with your girlfriend and you're living with your mom still, how's that crap? I mean, you heard earlier, your family should stay together, but not be having kids under your mom's roof. You should be having kids under your own roof. Yeah. And so, I mean, there's a time for everything.
Right.
And there's a time for you to step and be met. It's now. It's time for you to be a man and get married and have kids. That's later. They'll be able to provide and protect, in addition to being able to having confidence to be able to be that husband down the road. Dana White, speaking of that, let's go back to Dana White. Dana White says something here about today. If you're willing to stick up for yourself, stand up, versus whatever it's out there compared to your competition of this thing, business being war, well, there's also a flip side to it.
If you're a fucking savage and you get out there and you grind hard and you want it bad enough, you can run all these guys over, man. And this whole COVID thing, people don't want to go back to work and, they want to stay home and all this bullshit, man. You can't build a real business with people staying at home. You need that connection. You need to be in the office with your like-minded group of people, and you need to be brainstorming and working and coming up with ideas to take the company further. And this next generation is just such a fucking group of pussies, man. I just for the small group of savages out there, run these fucking kids right over, man. Run them all over.
You can't beat hard work.
That's it.
Hey, man,
that was
for all
always
the
my
savages
mentality.
out there, man. For all the savages
Nobody
out there, put it in the
ever
comment section below. Are you a savage? For the right purposes, they'll put it in the comment section below. Even Zoom CEO, can we look at my screen here, real quick, Jordan? Even the Zoom CEO is advising employees to return to office or risk losing trust. Zoom CEO. So, by the way, it's cool working from home, but hey, man, I'm not so sure if this is the way I actually build a company. I'm not so sure we actually build a culture, camaraderie, teamwork. Even the guy who invented the work from home movement, because he created a product for us to do so, he said, hey, if you work for Zoom, come back, man, come back. So what's your thoughts on this? I mean, regardless of what age you are, I think a 13-year-old boy, an 8-year-old boy, a 30-year-old man could be a savage if they're not willing to be pushed and bullied.
Yeah. But you two things. When it comes on to being in a community, I feel like men and women need community. We need community to be able to hold each other accountable. You need community so that way you can have a running mate. You can't do everything on your own. Men are not meant to be alone. And when I say man, I don't just mean men having a woman. I mean a person. You're not meant to be alone. And if you're trying to build something, it definitely takes a lot more than just one person. For me, for example, building what I'm trying to build, I've come to the realization I couldn't do it alone anymore. I was being burnt out. I was being stretched out too thin. I was burning bridges because I wasn't able to meet quotas, or I wasn't able to fulfill what I was trying to fulfill for my clientele. So I needed to bring people on board. So we need people. And if you bring people who either inspire you or you're inspiring by the way you lead, that's going to help you build yourself and your identity as well. But in order for you to be at that point, you need to have a sense of ownership, which is something that I feel a lot of men and women, and especially men, don't have nowadays. And actually, David Goggins touched on that a little bit. If we can get that video up, Jordan.
You gotta change that shit, man.
Yeah, but you don't understand my life, David.
Yeah, I do. So that's the thing about it. I get that mentality. I once had that mentality that no one understands what the fuck I'm going through. And if you keep that mentality, you're gonna stay in the same exact spot that you're in. You're never alone. Everybody's going through shit. So when people get this mentality of like, you don't understand me, you can throw a fucking rock to someone that can understand you if they're willing to break themselves down and stop hiding. A lot of people understand you.
And by the way, what's Goggins' claim to fame? The way he pushes himself is physically. He may not push himself entrepreneurially. He may not push himself, financially, but he's definitely pushing himselself physically. And the byproduct of that, entrepreneurially and financially, he's being pushed to greater financial heights. We had him on a 4 or 5 years ago, Goggins. We did 22 push-ups before we started his talk with us. But his mentality, love this guy's mentality, can't hurt me. The way he goes about, and by the way, he's not very well liked or received in the special forces community. I don't know why, but he doesn't care. He's doing his thing. He's elevating. He's growing.
So with that in mind, knowing that you've been around thousands of people, knowing that you've led hundreds of people, even thousands of people, knowing that on a weekly basis you have new faces coming into your office, is it easy to spot someone who has not yet stepped into their identity? And if it's easy to, now speaking from a leadership standpoint for all the leaders watching, is it easy to spot someone who has not yet stepped into their identity? And if you are able to spot that, how does a leader go about helping someone raise their identity in that realm?
Yeah, so it's all about association. We covered on this podcast a couple episodes ago. Just by you stepping around other high performers, it's kind of like School of Management. They did a study. If you just step around and associate with higher performers, just by default, you go up your performance goes up by 15% because you're thinking differently, you're vibrating differently. The flip side is true. If you step around low performers, your performance goes down by negative 30%. So the first one is association, because you got to be around the right people that are doing the right things, so the right circumstances and the right scenarios can eventually start to evolve and happen. So I want to put up this other video here too as well, because there's also a counter thought to this. Because the guy says, yeah, it's hard, man, and I got a lot of success, man, but would you do it all over again? Let's take a look at this clip from the CEO of NVIDIA.
If you were magically 30 years old again today in 2023, and you were going to Denny's with your two best friends who are the two smartest people you know, and you're talking about starting a company, what are you talking about starting?
I wouldn't do it. I know. And the reason for that is really quite simple. Ignoring the company that we would start. First of all, I'm not exactly sure. The reason why I wouldn't do it, and it goes back to why it's so hard, is building a company and building a video turned out to have been 1,000,000 times harder than I expected it to be. Any of us expected it to be. And at that time, if we realized the pain and suffering and just how vulnerable you're going to feel, and the challenges that you're going to endure, the embarrassment and the shame, and the list of all the things that go wrong, I don't think anybody would start a company. Nobody in their right mind would do it.
Cool. So here's the thing. NVIDIA right now is part of the Mag 7, top 7 companies at the S&P 500 for this year. If it wasn't for NVIDIA and the other 6 companies, the S&P 500 would be negative this year. But these guys have a company that led. Bro, I get the fact that you've been through some tough times. I get the fact that it was 1,000,000 times harder than I thought it'd be. But bro, if it wasn't for you, a lot of people today, the return of that millions of difficulties in return has been billions of dollars of advancement. Billions of advancement of artificial intelligence, billions of dollars in advancement of revenue, billions of investment in terms of new jobs creations and technology being developed because of the courage for you to stick with it. I ain't buying that, man. I'm not buying that one bit. Zero. We're going to talk about the challenge of entrepreneurship. This is part of the territory. Did you not forget that you're changing people's lives through your business? Did you not forget that people are feeding their families because of your courage to stick with the millions of times of hard, difficult moments that you have the courage to go through? Listen, if you're listening, you're hearing a lot of mixed messages today in today's podcast. I'm just saying, I believe, in my opinion, my own personal experience, I'd do it all over again. Over and over.
100%. And maybe I'm wrong, but I feel that the way he was approaching the question was if he walked back into his 30s with knowledge, knowing, okay, this is exactly what I'm going to go through to be able to get to where I'm at today. And just having that, knowing what you're going to go. Because someone tells you, hey, look, this is where you're at right now. And this line long of things, depression, anxiety, panic attacks, losing your spouse, losing your mom, losing your dad, losing your children, having setbacks, getting sued, XYZ.
Yeah, he's being real. He's being real about it.
Right.
Yeah.
You're going to go through all this shit in order for you to get to this point. Do you think it's still worth it? I think in that headspace, like, fuck that, it's not. Yeah. But if you go back, as you said, if you go back to that point in your early 30s, well, I'm 31, but if you go back to a certain, for me, 19, 20 years old, if you go back to that point, knowing, understanding the purpose behind why you're doing it, and understanding the macro, because maybe people focus way too much on the micro issues and not focus on the macro vision on what your thing, what your calling, your purpose, your service, your product-based business is going to do for someone. When you go back with that purpose in mind, I feel that anyone who was attached to the purpose can generally see themselves doing it over and over and over again.
And here's my 3 reasons why I would do it all over again. And even me right now, the only thing I would change right now, Milton, of me going back to my 30s, about to turn 50 here in a minute, the only reason I would go back is bringing back the knowledge I have today back to my 30s.
Oh, man.
Like if I was equipped in my 30s with the wisdom of a 50-year-old, holy moly.
You'd be in a different place right now.
I'd be in a different place. Yeah. That's why my children cannot wait for my kids and our associates and the people in our community, in our mastermind groups. I can't wait for their kids to catch on to what mom and dad is talking about, because I'm doing it for 3 things. Number one, for us to go through the hard, to do it all over again, just understand that money is created when values is expressed. Real quick, Jordan, can you take a look at this this picture here on my screen? So we sat down with the billionaire. He gave us and we sat down with the billionaire, and we celebrated together with him, with Patrick Bet-David. Okay, this a couple weeks ago, October 11th, we're toasting. Why? Because we decided to go through the hard. Patrick Bet-David decided to go through the hard. Right? We're toasting here because we decided to go through the hard. Okay, where everybody's cheering and celebrating because we're right beside you. Right? Some of the coolest things we could experience in life. We're at downtown right here in Dallas, celebrating with a billionaire, Brian Adams, there to my left, to the right in the picture. Why? Because we decided to go through the hard. Money is created when value first is created. We decided to create value, and we need to connect with people that have the ability to create more value, because money helps people. To me, money is a tool. It helps no matter what church service you go to, even the stuff we talked about at the beginning of the show. Guess what they ultimately need? They need money to help people carry out what they need to carry out. The third thing is the amount of fulfillment, the amount of personal and leadership development I've experienced, the amount of relationships and experiences I've just had overall, this quality of life. I've never experienced this being, oh, let me take it, the easier road, so therefore I don't get beat up through the shame, the guilt, and all those different riffraffs. I've learned to cherish everything, the purpose I've learned to discover, going through the process, going through the hard, the resistance, the pressure, just like a body, right? Mm-hmm. The body's only going to grow if it feels resistance. If you break down muscle fibers and tear it up and put it through immense pressure and resistance, correct, that's the only way the body's going to grow. Same thing entrepreneurially and financially. And the third thing, I'll wrap up with this. At the end of the day, life is going to be hard. Life is going to be rough. But I'd rather die on my knees fighting for freedom than die just living on my knees, just saying, okay, I'm just going to take whatever you're willing to give me because I don't want to deal with the hard.
100%.
I'd rather die on my doggone knees. I'd rather die on my feet than live on my knees.
That's why you need a strong foundation. You need to believe in something bigger than yourself. Believing in something bigger than yourself. For me, it's God, but for you, it could be something else. But I really encourage you to seek out after something greater than yourself, because that's going to give you a sense of meaning, a sense of purpose, a sense of direction, which will then build into some form of momentum to push you forward. But you need to understand that it starts with you, it starts with inner work, it starts with mental, it starts with physical, it starts with just increasing your energy and seeking for answers to questions that you may have, and not allowing yourself to be around people who are holding you back and allowing you to stay stagnant in the position that you were 5 years ago, 10 years ago, and where you're at today. Where you're at today, you shouldn't be in the same position next year, 5 years from now, or 10 years from now. Every year, every day, week, month, year, and decade, you should be growing into something better and bigger and stepping into the identity that God has called you to step into. 100%, man.
I think on the journey towards, this is a 7-Figure Squad Goals podcast, right? And when you're looking at the journey of money, as we wrap up the show, the journey of making money, the easiest part of making yourself money is how to make money. It's so easy to make money today. I mean, look at Google, look at YouTube. There's so many different ways to make money in our country today. It's just we're sometimes too lazy or don't have the leadership to find out how to pick out 1 or 2 or 3 ways to make money. So I hope that as you're watching this podcast, if you find yourself in the right community, you plug into that community, find the right associations, you invest in those associations, so therefore you can learn how to make money and you learn how to control your income. He or she that controls your income controls your life. And if you want to control your life, you got to be able to control your income. The second part of that too as well is that part of the journey of making $1 million or being financially free, financially independent is the associations. And the third part is understanding the standards that you're willing to live under. Are willing to lower your standards. If you want a high standard life, but willing to have low standards and purpose in your life's not going to change. But if you're plugging into the right things to transform the way you think about money, is going to start transforming the way it gets the right deposited into your account. So that being said, Milton, we're going to have an interesting guest next week, a women's perspective on the show.
Yep.
We're going to have that next Wednesday. Also this week, we're going to have a couple other guests too as well. Guys, I'm interviewing here in terms of identity. How do you get out of your own way when it comes to identity? Rocky will be on the show here in the 7-Figure Squad Goals podcast. So make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel here, the 7-Figure Squad YouTube channel, a channel dedicated to help you think like a millionaire, strategize like a millionaire, so therefore you could be a first-generation cash flow millionaire. That being said, on behalf of Milton Alvarez from Dallas, Texas, I'm a mighty smart guy. And until we meet again, continue to live smart, continue to love smart, and be mighty smart today. Subscribe.